Welcome to the Reboot Chronicles, connecting you to the world's top leaders and CEOs rebooting their organizations and themselves with revealing stories to help you prosper in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean DeBias, and as a serial CEO who's led dozens of companies that created thousands of jobs and billions in revenue, my passion is uncovering powerful lessons that can inspire you to reboot your organization, your career, and your life. Listen and subscribe wherever you get podcasts or at rebootchronicles.com. I'd like to welcome Rob Candelino to the Reboot Chronicles. Rob is the CEO of PetSafe Brands, the world's leading dog and cat product supplier. Their portfolio includes leading brands with hundreds of patents like Invisible Fence, Sport Dog, and Kurgo. With tens of millions of dogs protected by their fence systems and trained by their bark collars, PetSafe is available in over 70 countries. And Rob is on a mission to grow this company into a billion-dollar brand, probably beyond, knowing him. Previously, Rob was a Unilever business unit CEO, and like me, he also advises and mentors entrepreneurs and startups in his spare time. I'm not sure how he has any. Rob, it's good to see you.
Great to see you, Dean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always good to talk about the other things on the planet besides human products. You know, pet products is, whenever I look at the stats, I'm blown away. It's supposed to be like a $500 billion market by 2030, 500 billion, depending on whose forecast you look at. I think that was Bloomberg. So I get why you guys are in it. No shortage of competition, of course. But what kind of before we get into your reboot and what you're doing, what kind of issues are going on in this industry?
Yeah, I think you see it is actually related to reboot, but it's less a reboot of our business, Dean. It's actually a reboot of a whole bunch of intersecting causals, reboot of the retail environment, reboot of the consumer, reboot of return to work, post-pandemic, which the pandemic itself and post-pandemic has kind of whipsawed the industry and how people can be home to take care of pets and the implications of not being home anymore. So we sit squarely at the intersection of all of these kind of reboot factors or drivers writ large across the world right now. And I think one of the things that we've really been working hard at PetSafe Brands over the last few years is navigating through all of that kind of volatility and that complexity to kind of find our base and our North Star as we build the plan, as you say, to build a business well ahead of $1 billion.
Yeah, one of the other reasons we wanted you on, besides the market being cool and all that, is you're going through something I've gone through many times, whereas it's founder-led company, private equity takes it over, brings in large and in charge. I think they used to call it adult supervision. I call it commercial grade CEO. And what kinds of things are you learning about, what got you here versus what's going to take you to a multi-billion-dollar enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a ton. And
Loaded
that's
question,
exactly
I
what I
know.
wanted to do. That's exactly what I want. Like, I had the privilege of working for a world-class blue chip company for 25 years. I had experiences all over the world. I had incredible leaders and mentors who invested a ton in me. It taught me the value of sending the elevator back down and investing in people and developing people, particularly those who want to learn and want to grow. And I always believed I was one of those people. I think I reached that point in my career where I said I wanted to learn more and different. And that's what started this journey for me to look and explore new things. And I said, if I was going to do anything different, I would not do kind of conventional CPG because I felt I was already with the bluest of blue chips and the best company in the world. So I decided to do something radically different. I went big global multinational to private equity owned. I went from ice cream and shampoo and deodorants and beauty products to pet technology. And I went from, Toronto, Chicago, London, New York, Bangkok to Knoxville, Tennessee. We really did a 180-degree pivot, we being myself and my family who have been on this journey.
That's a perfect storm. Wow.
Yeah. But I feel like, truthfully, career-wise, I feel like I'm playing with house money a little bit because it never should have been like this for me. I genuinely give Unilever and probably about half a dozen or so leaders within Unilever a ton of credit for investing in someone like me and helping me kind of continually stretch and grow. The learning, though, I really wanted to get was what was going to define the next chapter of my life and my career. Have always been paranoid about being kind of a middle-aged man, and my skills and the half-life of my skills dramatically shortens and I become a dinosaur. And the only way I felt that I needed to grow was to throw myself in a situation where I would be literally, figuratively, in over my head. And that's very much what we got here. I was incredibly fortunate to inherit this role. 30, at the time, a 30-year-old, fantastically successful, world-leading company. We were pet tech before pet tech was cool, with an incredibly inspiring purpose, right? Like, we show up, our teammates all over the world, in the 70 countries we sell in, with our offices on 4 continents. We come to work every day to help unleash freedom for pet parents, to help keep their pets happy, healthy, and safe. And particularly over the last 4, that's always been true. Pet owners will know how much value and love and loyalty pets bring into the home. But particularly over the last several years, when CD&R acquired the company and I came in 2022, I think we all learned that A, the role of pets has never been more important. B, the opportunity commercially has never been more attractive and lucrative. And C, it's never been as competitive or as dynamic or frankly as interesting as it is today. I often say to the team internally, the pace of change will never be this slow ever again. And for a company that's been fantastically successful for 30 years, we also recognize that this next chapter of our growth needs to be defined by a different set of metrics. We need to be faster. We need to be more versatile. We need to be more competitive. We need to be more dynamic. We need to be more inventive. And I say that on the back of the fact that we have 800 patents and I've got 75 engineers, in 3 countries, countries around the world. We just need to do better in every respect. And that's not an indictment of the past. It's very much how we grow and capitalize on the potential future of this company.
Yeah, it's both a professional reboot, we'll get into that in a second, and company. When you look at your landscape, you got the traditional competitors, you got all the whatever pet tech sector guys. Some will make it, some won't. But when you look at growth and innovation, products like consumable versus versus tech products versus services versus pure technology services. What are you looking at in terms of where do you want to end up in terms of our product mix?
We are very much a pet hard good products company. Frankly, the consumable categories are they're kind of saturated, if I'm honest, and I feel like we don't have the core expertise in our DNA. That's not who we are as a business. We are a technology company in our core, and that's very much our swim lane. In fact, over the last few years, we've got more decisive and intentional about focusing there. Going forward, though, that provides us opportunities to create different business models on top of that. So how do we think about recurring revenue that a lot of the consumables have built in because they have predictable purchase cycles? We don't, or we haven't. So how do we then leverage a large initial install of an invisible fence or a large purchase of a piece of technology, and then recurring revenue streams that draft off that, be it with subscriptions or other replenishment products that help amplify the efficacy of our technology products? That is very much that combination of how we embed some type of consumable aspect to our kind of more set piece purchases of technology products.
Yeah, I love that. And, companies like Whirlpool who have been on have kind of tried and failed with that, like hardware, then consumables and DNA and culture, whatever. It just never seems to happen. But with you guys, just like an example, a cat feeder, you can have automatic supplies or food or I think you're a big kitty litter production house too. So that seems to make sense. And then what about the software as a service platform? So as AI is growing and embedded chips and all these things, without getting too geeky on the product roadmap, do invisible fences basically turn into, well, we actually know where we know where they are. We don't need the perimeter anymore. It's all controlled by an AI chip embedded in the cat, dog, whatever pet.
I mean, we're embracing AI already in our business, as you can imagine. And this is part of the being intentional about how we focus on our priority categories and leverage the latest technology to deliver on our purpose of keeping pets happy, healthy, and safe. So, for example, we have technology built into our chips that it isn't just the fence which acts as a deterrent to keep the pet off the street and out of the way of an SUV or from attacking a neighbor or a delivery person. What we actually do is we have beacons and systems internally, which based on the pace of the pet, we can determine at what point that pet will interact with that fence and whether or not they're going to put themselves in harm's way. And so we're using predictive analytics, predictive AI, to prevent that from ever happening. So we can track and monitor before it even becomes an issue to prevent the pet from getting in harm's way. For us, that is our core proposition, and we want to leverage technology to accelerate and amplify our core purpose.
Is an example of that, like if the velocity of the pet is going so fast, you actually shock it and say, stop. Interesting.
Well, yeah, or whatever cue, right? There are auditory cues, there are vibrations, right? The correction, the static correction that the pet would get would not happen unless they were like in dire straits. And we believe that actually through our training programs and through the technology, we can prevent the dog from ever having to be in harm's way.
Yeah, makes sense. So when you look at those priority categories, you call them, and then you think about your growth trajectory, anyone in your position is like, how do I grow faster, more sustainable, fits in with our culture? But when you look at the build, buy, borrow matrix that we talk about a lot, what are you going to continue to build yourself? You're very grounded in technology, but there's new technologies out there. What are you going to buy and acquire? What are you going to borrow? The whole partnering landscape for you seems like a perfect storm as well. How do you balance all that and growth plans?
Look, I think like anybody else in my position or in a growth-oriented company like ours with tons of growth prospects, we have to keep all of those avenues open. We need to invent, we need to rent, we need to acquire, and we need to partner. And we are doing meaningful ventures in all four of those theme areas. For example, we acquired a business several years ago, the Scoop Free business. You mentioned kitty litter. It is one of our signature categories, our waste management business. We have a patent protected automatic litter box. The user, the pet parent, the cat parent does not have to touch or engage in litter with the cat for 30 days because of our reusable trays. And the crystal litter that we use is in fact the highest efficacy product available. And so the fusion of those two, we actually 80 some odd % of the category today is still done in clay litter, the clumping litter, where today users are having to go in and scoop multiple times a day and dump it into a bag and then throw it away. In our system, we have the automatic box, which corrals all the waste, and we have the crystal litter itself, which absorbs all the odor and doesn't make it smell in your home. And for 30 days, corrals it underneath in a odor-proof kind of reservoir that once every 30 days, all the user has to do is replenish their tray. Now, that is fantastic, but still tons of penetration opportunities in that. So when you talk about how we build or how we grow, the majority of the market is still in clumping litter. We have a very small share of the litter market, which is very similar to traditional consumer products. There are the large CPG companies there, but our product is superior efficacy, and it's in a segment that is growing faster than the core business. And we have a system approach together with our hardware that is unique in the category. There's an opportunity to convert traditional usage to that system approach. The consumer gets a far better user experience, which is way more freedom and liberating for them as users, better experience for the pet, and it's a trade up for the category and for the market. So it's kind of a win-win-win for all. So that's building on what we already have. We are equally partnering with our long-held supplier base that we have all over the world. We have partners that are here this week from Mexico. And they're the world leader in manufacturing of various kind of appliances for pets. And we've been working with them for nearly 3 decades. And we're drafting out new innovation projects. They are partners. and we are co-creating. And then, of course, there's always acquisition, Dean. Like, this company was built through acquisition in many respects. I think the difference for us now is that worked when we were a 20 or 30 or $50 million company. You could go to a trade show and buy a $10 million business or a $15 million
Yeah.
business. That isn't material to us anymore. So we are really focused on the big transformational M&A. And in our categories, there aren't that many options, which therefore puts more focus for us on making sure we build internally the capabilities to invent faster, bigger, more ambitiously, and to execute with excellence.
Yeah, what an example of that, like be making a technology platform that then you can tuck in some acquisitions under. So you're kind of building this roadmap that you can't find, a huge $500 million revenue company to buy. You can actually acquire some components that accelerate your time to market, and
Or we invent
but
them.
it's also more part of a product mix, not just a conglomerate of pet stuff. Does that make
Yeah, and I
sense?
think this is part of the reboot of the category and consumer expectations. It used to be that, a litter box was fine enough. Now, consumers want to know on my app with what frequency my dog is exiting the property and where they are on the property. We can now provide that tracking and that update. How often does my pet go to the litter box and with what frequency? And does that indicate an ailment or an illness of some sort? So, technology is enabling us to just be better and more thoughtful, and more valuable to consumers, in helping them keep their pets happy, healthy, and safe. And that's where we're really focused. And the focus we have put in our business is we have a lot of categories and we have a lot of retail partners. We are broad based. We are the largest pure play, and we are the largest brick and mortar. And in our industry, what's super interesting is the number 2, number 3, number 4 players in each of them don't actually cross over. It's incredibly difficult to have large pure play or DTC players in brick and mortar and vice versa. We're the only ones who are able to do that. And because of that, we get intel and inputs from very thoughtful, educated buyers and or retail behavior, consumer behavior across all of our retail platforms that inform our innovations so that we can add more value, we believe, than any of our competitors.
And when you look at retail versus DTC versus marketplaces, I know you're in all of them. Where's that trending for you guys?
It's literally growing everywhere. And I think what we're very proud of the fact that we have a very balanced footprint across all frontiers. Literally, my history in CPG coming to this company, I've been really impressed at the breadth of distribution and positionings we have across so many different formats of retail. We're big in farm ag. We're big, obviously, in pet specialty. We have a meaningful presence in grocery. We're building it in mass market, mass merchants, and obviously pure play. We have long had a very substantial presence. And so for us, we need to be literate in all of them. And while that can be burdensome to many companies because you need to be multidextrous in how you run your company, because these are literally two different operating ecosystems, you then add to that direct to consumer, which I think as part of the reboot of the company is an area where we didn't really invest a whole lot in, largely because we had big presence in pure play and brick and mortar. I think we have uniquely the capability to be great in all three areas. And so that's very much what we're building. We think we can accelerate growth in all areas and be wherever the consumer wants us to be with our products and services.
Yeah, it's a lot of cylinders to hit on, but it makes sense. Go where the consumers are already comfortable. This is a passionate topic for them. It's a member of the family for most people. When you look at that $500 billion number, so there's a lot of subcategories in there. What do you think about these other adjacent things, either for partnering or owning yourself? Like pet insurance and pet health, and not getting into the vet business so much, but so much revenue out there just from a capitalist point of view. How do you draw the line there?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to be single-minded on the categories or places where we believe we have a meaningful right or potential or frankly obligation to compete. And that is informed by our purpose. And does it help keep pets happy, healthy, and safe? Number one. I get pitched all the time about hey, do you want to acquire this company? Do you want to acquire my business? I've invented this little widget or whatever. And they're all
I bet.
interesting, but they don't make sense for us because that's not in our lane, number one. So I think we
Yep.
have to be really disciplined and focused because the temptation is to be in a lot of places, number one. Number two, there is colossal opportunity just being better in the places we already are, and that takes its form in multiple ways where we are by far and away the category leader in categories like containment, pet protection, dog protection in yards, et cetera. There are opportunities to grow the category, right? Expand the pie, if you will. And that's by introducing new innovation and new technology, which we are now on a crusade to do. And we've just started this year with some meaningful ways to do that. And we have a very robust funnel to do that into the future. Similarly, in a category like litter, I mentioned our position. We have a superior product, but it's the fastest growing segment, but the segment itself is small in this ocean of clumping litter. So in that respect, are there opportunities to convert consumers up or over into that format? So Dean, it really falls into by category what the growth prospects are and the opportunities. And as you say, the subsegments we've mapped into the categories where we are. There are obviously then adjacent categories, as you mentioned, and for us right now, truthfully, there's so much potential in where we already are. We just launched a premium litter box. We haven't had a super premium litter box. We launched it 6 months ago, and we're having trouble keeping this thing in stock. It's selling so great. Our Smart Spin litter box, and we're expanding distribution. So there's still so much to do in our existing categories that the adjacent stuff has to be super attractive and or something that really, really fits our growth agenda to supplant the focus that we already have in our core business.
You seem pretty competitive yourself, personally. How do you handle competition? It's my biggest hot button. Always paranoid, right? But yeah, how do you handle competition? You have no shortage in every category. And it seems to have got just since 2015, maybe it's just doubled or tripled. And how do you deal with all the competition out there?
Well, I think, listen, I grew up in an organization where it was ferociously competitive and we competed against the best in the world. I think that made us better. Iron sharpens iron, right? And so I genuinely feel like we need to be, and I think we're becoming a company that embraces the competition, acknowledges when they might have done something clever or interesting that can inspire our work, and therefore it accelerates our work here to be better. So I very much view competition first and foremost as welcomed because I think it makes us better. True competitors want to compete against the best. Now, that's not true necessarily everywhere in pet because it isn't always like a lot of the best. You get a lot of stuff. And I spend a lot of time at trade shows and talking to retail partners, et cetera. And it's just become so congested. And I think part of the discipline is sifting through the noise. What products are interesting and gaining traction? Who has an interesting marketing strategy, but maybe not a great product, and vice versa? Who has an interesting product, but a terrible business model, and they're not going to be viable? So you have to be very careful about
our leadership team, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, and then, you start getting down, you can very quickly fall into a trap where you're playing whack-a-mole, right? You're trying to fight against everybody. We're judicious in how we look at it. Who are we inspired by and what do they do that inspires us to be better? And then we have the responsibility, once you acknowledge that, to then embed that into our own ways of working to be better. And we like our chances if that's how we do things, right? We think we can compete with virtually anybody. In litter, we're competing against the Goliaths, right? And we've done pretty well, thank you very much, and we continue to grow like crazy. Similarly, in the hard goods categories where we are leaders, I think we've been leaders for quite some time. We're very proud of that. We're going to lead even bigger in the coming years. I think that's super cool.
And you're grounded in a massive patent portfolio, which a lot of them do not have that luxury. I love that idea, though, learning from your competitors, kind of getting some lessons from them, maybe even being inspired by them, and then still go kill them. So it's always a good approach. What about your personal journey? Like me, you grew up in the big dog companies, some of the biggest in the world, and then kind of jumped into I don't know if I'd call this an entrepreneurial venture, but it was. and probably still run that way. Your culture is very well documented and attractive, and you get good ratings. But yeah, what's been some of your struggles along the way in your career that you've learned from?
Yeah, I think for me, as I say, I live by a few rules. They've just kind of guided me, and they've kind of worked out.
Hmm.
Um, I very much believe in the principle I was taught several years ago to do the hard rights versus the easy wrongs. It's just a leadership philosophy
Mhm.
of mine. It's how I live my
Yeah.
life. It's how I raise my kids. And if you have that as a leader, you therefore, by definition, never settle. And so I tell the team here, it's in my job description to be constructively dissatisfied. And that is a responsibility then, that things are going to be amazing, but they can always be better and we can always keep growing. And I believe the CEO is very often the pace car of an organization. And the second we slow down, the organization will slow down. And I've been blessed by having people around me my whole life who have said, you know, I'm going to push you really hard if you're up for it. And if you're willing to listen and learn and work hard, then I think there's a lot of growth in it for you. And that's a deal I have made a dozen times in my life, 50 times. And it's always seemingly worked out. And so I've taken those principles into my life, and it's changed the trajectory of my personal life and the experiences and, prosperity. And I very, very much believe at this stage in my life, I'm still just getting started, but I'm doing so with the benefit of, nearly 30 years now of experience from having incredible leaders, including here where I am today, that have helped me get better. I just listen to people you admire. Don't try to be them, but learn from them. Cast out your own leadership shadow. Send the elevator back down. Do the difficult rights versus the easy wrongs. And if you surround yourself with really good, talented people, things will tend to work out more often than not. And that's been my experience, and that's how I live today.
Yeah, I love it. What's a good example of a hard right versus an easy wrong? Most people say doing the right thing, but I like the way you framed it there.
Well, I mean, look, things were very, very good for me at my previous employer.
Would have been easy. Would have been easy just to stay there.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to I'm terrified of being a dinosaur. I believe that we always talk, and I also felt like I didn't want to be a hypocrite, right? As
Ah,
you mentioned earlier, I mentor a lot of advisors. I mentor a lot of founders. I sit on a bunch of boards, um, and I try to coach people like, don't be scared, right? Leaders cannot you can't be a great leader from leading from fear, right? It has to be confidence and conviction. And you may not know all the answers, but you have to be you have to have that belief. And I found myself saying that to a lot of people. And then it came to me and myself and my own journey. And I said, you know what? I feel like I'm really comfortable and I feel like I can do more. And I feel like I want to learn more. And I'm terrified about not learning more and becoming a dinosaur. So I am going to do the difficult right thing and take a job in a different industry with a different ownership construct with different partners that I've never worked with in a city I never stepped foot in before I took the job, um, and move my family to a place we have never visited. And
Tennessee's a little different.
yeah, but it worked out. It's working out, and I just believe that. And it doesn't always work out. And I don't want to sound flippant about it because these are big life decisions. But certainly for me, doing those things and having the conviction and the belief, and then working really, really hard, and then surrounding yourself with people who care about you and who you care about, and creating that personal board of directors and the people who will advise you and coach you and people you can lean on. I found has been a winning recipe for me thus far, and I'm super grateful to everybody who has played a part in it, and I very, very, very deeply care about doing the same for the people that I now work with.
Yeah, very humble leadership style. What's the best advice you've been given entrepreneurs these days?
Um, look, um,
Just tell
um,
them they're listening. So,
yeah, well, one of the reasons why I spend so much time with founders and entrepreneurs, is because they're massively inspiring to me. I don't know that I would have the conviction, truthfully, to start my own company. I just think it is, I think entrepreneurs are very much, I mean, it's a cliche, right? Entrepreneurs are the backbone of the economy, but they are the backbone of leadership, literally starting from nothing and building, creating being a founder and creating something that gives back jobs. And, that is noble work. And the conviction, the sleepless nights, the debt, and all those things that they have to deal with. You're so close to the ground, you feel the bumps every single day. And yet the resilience and the strength and the determination to power through that, I'm like mad respect.
Definitely no shock absorbers.
What's that? Shock absorbers, exactly.
There's no shock absorbers. Exactly. I love that analogy.
But for me, it's like, well, what I tell them is be open to learning, right? And I find that so many of them, the most successful ones, the ones I take great pleasure in dealing with, have this beautiful, simple North Star of who and where they want to go, like who they want to be and where they want to go. And they're very, very open to like asking for help and guidance along the way. That for me is like the balance. That's what I look for in the partners that I work with. The ones who are so self-determined, right, wrong, or indifferent, very often are like, I'm going this way, kind of get out of my way. And there's a place for that. I don't really do a lot with founders like that. I believe that the founders who ask for help and want help, I have all the time in the world for, because I think that makes them better over the long term. And it makes ultimately, in my experience, the business that they are building more sustainable, viable, and kind of able to absorb the shocks.
Thanks, Rob. You've been listening to Rob Candelino, who is the CEO of PetSafe. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. Listen and subscribe or watch us wherever you get podcasts or at rebootchronicles.com.